This segment will show on how to create your own enemy AI. Right here I'm just using a zombie model, but you could use whatever you want, or you could just create a separate an empty game object and attach a script to it. There really isn't much on this object here. This isn't in use right now, but you want to add a rigid body, and that should be it for now, and a box collider. Okay, let's get started on creating the script. First, you want to add the NavMesh agent. You can keep the settings as default, and you want to create your enemy AI script. So you don't have to name it enemy AI script. I'm just not the best at naming classes. But okay. Okay, let's first call our variables. So one would be the transform of the target, which is the player. And you want to make that public, or you could just serialize it, depending on if you're going to use it elsewhere. But for now, I'll keep it public. Then you want to make a float variable, which is the attack radius. And I'm going to set it to 30. Then you want to call the NavMesh agent. This could just be private, but I just want to make sure that using Unity engine.ai is there. You just want to create a variable to hold the transform of the destinations. So just public transform destination. It's going to be an array, so it can hold multiple positions where you want the enemy to walk between. Then you want to make an int variable called current point. And this will work in conjunction with the destinations. So if you have like 5 or so, or in this case you have 2 destinations, it's going to rotate between 0 and 1. But we can get to that. Okay, so in our start method, you want to call the NavMesh. So I'll give you a minute if you want to do that yourself. Just going to be NavMesh is equal to get component NavMesh agent. Then you want to remove the update. And usually for any type of physics-based movement, you want to use a fixed update. Then in your fixed update method, you want to create a float variable called well, you can name it whatever you want, but I'm just going to name it dist2, the distance 2. I guess it's between to be vector 3 dot distance, which is going to calculate the distance between you and the player, or the target in this case. Then you want to make an if statement, so that if the distance 2 is less or equal to the attack radius, then you want to do something. I also created a this isn't needed as much, but a variable called timer. So what this will do is it'll keep time on how many seconds being passed to attack the player. Sorry about that minor pause right there. Okay, so since this is within the attack radius, you want to start the timer. Just need timer plus or equal timer time that delta time. Then if the timer goes over 8 seconds, then you want the enemy to start following the player. But first, let's look at the target. So just like transform dot look at target, then make a vector 3 variable called move to, or whatever name you choose. It's gonna be vector 3 dot move towards the current position, transform the position in the target position, and you could set a max distance, but I'm just going to leave it as 100. Then since you're using the NavMesh agent, you could just press you can call your NavMesh, and you want to use the destination. So NavMesh.destination is equal to the vector is equal to the position that the vector 3 calculated. So with this right here, this should start allowing the enemy to follow the player. So for your targets would be the player, and since you have the NavMesh agent component on your object, you want to go to Window. You could also click right over here if it's in your inspector, or just go to Window, AI, Navigation, Areas. Oh, actually Bake, then Bake, so it could point out the walkable paths. I'll get into this maybe in another video, or I'll just do it at the end to adjust the walkable areas. The blue field is where the enemy can walk. Okay, so now that now you want to assign a number to the attack radius. 30 is, I think it's usually too high, but let's keep it at 10. And our player will be right there. So it's still going to have to wait 8 seconds. I'll actually make that one public, or I'll serialize it so you could see them, the number increase, to know when it'll start to follow the target. Okay, 4 seconds. Okay, now you see the enemy starts to follow the player. Part of the enemy AI. So I created a max time variable and assigned it to 8, and I serialized the timer variable, and replaced the max time with the digit we had here before. Then once the enemy once the enemy is out of the attack radius, you go back to the pathfinding. You set in range to false. So once you're back in the pathfinding, then you want to update the distance to go to what you said the 2 points in your and a transform array, the destinations, and use the current point to update the number, the place. So let's say something like if the range is and NavMesh remaining distance is less than 0.5f, then we want to update the destination to the destinations in the transform and the current point position. Then we want to call update current point, and in current point we want to change the current point to change the position. So go between 0 and 1, or how many points you have in your method. In your so you want to just look if the current and the current point becomes 0. So the current point plus becomes 1. You could also hook up the animator if you're using the same zombie model, which comes with the animations. You could set that up by calling the animator. So let's just do that really quick. Then I guess we could call this right after the timer so it starts running. So I'll just like anim that. I already set the parameters in that actually. So I think it's the speed is what I've made it to. Actually, it's the walk, so I created a new float parameter called walk. Then create an empty object and make a transition to that. So then the condition will be walk if it's greater than 1. I think this is if it's less than 0. Okay. So let's go back to the code. And the anim set float walk to 1. Then once they're walking back, actually we could keep it that way. Maybe if there's a running one, but let's just keep that for now. Might be waiting for the 8 seconds to come up. Okay, he's doing a little walk animation right there, because he's not in the T pose. Oh, actually no, he's not. He's still idle. Okay, I had to change the value to 2. So maybe I want to do something else, like if I want to change that to walk and run, maybe. Let's make an int variable called run speed. Actually, we could. No, I don't think we need to serialize that. Okay, now let's, once it's going back to its path finding, let's set that to 0 maybe. Might have to change that. -1 doesn't seem like it'll go well with that. Okay, it's back to idle since it's on its own path. Now let's up to the attack radius of 50. Just so we could start running after us. Okay, it's coming after us. One moment. Okay, you know what I did? I didn't assign run speed to a value first. So, okay, now it's running at me. Okay, I'm about to die. Alright, now it's out of range, so it's back to being idle. It's going towards its path. I'm just pretty much walking towards that path regardless. Okay, now it's running back. Now it's back to its going back to its path. Okay, I just updated the animation because the idle animation didn't seem like it was going very well. Now, once I get out of the way, it should go back to its bopping, I guess that is. And it's going to be bopping to its destination. Okay, now let's interrupt his bopping so he could run after us. Okay, now it seems like he's running after us. So, yeah. Okay. So, there you have it. I'll go through the code one more time in case you missed anything. And for the animator, you don't I know this might seem like a lot, this entire area, but you really only have to focus on the entry to the idle, to the walk. I'm not really using this right now, but yeah, you just have to create a float parameter. And then the condition walk. I could remove that as well. So there's like no weird transition. Okay, let's just go through this one more time. This is the code that was used. the NavMesh agent, the animator on the enemy. Depending on if you have animation or not for your model, you might not need this. So if you get like errors, like no reference error or something, you might want to just remove this, or the animator. But the console should point that out. Calculating the distance between yourself and the target. Checking if you're within the range. If you are, you start the timer. If the timer's over the number that you specified in the inspector, which is I think we put it as 8, then you change the you put the run speed to 2, which is assigned the value in the animator. Then you set in range to true. Then the enemy looks at the target. Okay, sorry about that pause. So then you're creating a vector3 variable to to move an object to the target position. Then when you have that position in the vector3 variable, you assign it to the NavMesh.destination to move it to that destination. I think if you have like a rigid body, you could also do something like pretty much you would have to like a rigid body, create the rigid body variable. Say if you name it like body dot you know what, let's just forget about that part. I think it's like move towards I think it's like move position dot move to, maybe. Okay, I mean that's something like this. If you were using a rigid body or something, and this would move towards that position. But since we're using NavMesh, it's going to keep updating. Okay, so then once the you're out of the attack radius, I set the run speed to -1, and then the animation set the then you call the animator, and the walk parameter value its the run speed, and range is false since you're going back to your pathfinding. Then when you call the pathfinding method, you verify that the range is false, and the remaining distance in the NavMesh agent is less than 0.5f. So because it doesn't have much room to walk. Then you set the new destination to the destinations in the transform array destinations, which you assign the positions right over here in your element 0 and 1. Then you call the update current point. So then if your current point is if your current point is 1, then you change it to 0, and if it's not, then you just increment that so it changes back to 1. So pretty much on errors, you might want to comment this part out, and this as well. But everything else should be working, and verify that you're using fixed update and you're calling the required components, such as Unity engine.ai, even though if you call it create the variable NavMesh agent, it should import that. So this should cover the enemy AI, and I'll do some more movement right now. Okay, so let's go through the gameplay once more. Okay, I've collected one key. The zombie starts to chase me. Collected another key. And I'm evading the zombie. Then the door opens up and game's over.